a snowman. So you're going to need some white wool. I would say maybe around 10 grams. You're going to need some black wool for your hat and your 2 eyes made out of coal, probably about 3.5 grams or so. Whatever color you want to make a scarf out of. I'm going to choose blue. And then, of course, your carrot nose. You're going to need your felting block, clearly, and then you're also going to need a felting needle. This is a 36 gauge felting needle. So, as you can see, I have 3 pieces of wool here. Each one is roughly the same size. I mean, you can change them up, maybe 3.5 grams each. So, if you have a long piece, you're going to split it into 3 so that you can make 3 different balls for your snowman. So, first, what you're going to do is you're going to tightly roll a ball. Well, it's going to look more like a roll, but it's going to become a ball. And so as you're tightly rolling, you want to tuck in the edges so that it doesn't become really long. And this gets all the air out. So next we're going to, excuse me, next we're going to poke across gently with our needle. And these little barbs here on the needle, I don't know if you can see that, they tangle in the scales of the ball. So as we poke across, just a couple times, we're going to turn it a little bit. It actually tangles the wool. And then this way, eventually our roll won't come undone once we felt across the whole way. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so poke, 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 just gently turn a little bit, gently turn a little bit. And now you can see it won't come undone because we've tangled the fibers enough. So obviously this does not look like a ball. So what we want to do is kind of poke down our long edges, just sort of round the top. So we're going to start going around the top like this. Just sort of imagine a cone. We're going to start rounding it like a dome, sorry. Turn it a little bit. You might want to go up like this, or you can go all the way over to the side. Sometimes people like to just go up like this. See, there's little bits that are a little fluffy. We want to poke those in. So this end is starting to look a little bit rounded, you can tell. Now we have to do the same thing for the other end. So we're going to poke it down. Not too hard, just gently. It's just imagining that dome shape. It's sculpting our wool. See, it's starting to look a little bit more like a ball. Right now it's looking a bit more like an oval, but that's okay. Excuse me. Okay, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is going to be your bottom ball of your snowman. So we're going to set it aside here. We're going to grab our next bit of wool. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit of this off so it's a bit smaller. And if we need more, we can just add more on. So same thing, we're going to roll very tight roll here. We're going to go across. Until it doesn't come undone. Then we're going to poke down from the top, create that dome shape. See how our top's starting to get a bit rounded? Okay, other side. And you can do this as long as you want. Like your balls might be a little bit fluffy and malleable, and that's okay. Or you can make them really dense by just continuing to felt. It will just get smaller and smaller. And if you want them to be bigger in size but just dense, you can just add more wool on, and that's totally fine. There's lots of different styles of felting. Some people like it fluffy, some people like them very dense. So here's another ball. We'll put that here. And then we want to do our head. So maybe this much. We can add more if we need more. Tightly roll, same thing. Poke, poke, poke. Start making that dome. Other side. And if your ball looks really long, you just want to poke it down from both ends and it will start condensing it towards the middle. Okay. And don't worry too much about the exact shape. So there you go. You have 3 balls. So now you want to stack them on top of each other. So we're going to take our second ball and we're actually going to kind of go right along the edge here. And you might want to pull a little bit of your wool out. It's almost like when you're doing clay where you almost want to rough it up. Pull a little bit out, and then you can use those little loose bits to felt the two together. Just go kind of on an angle, grabbing those little bits and felting them into the top ball into the bottom one. You want to go a little bit like that. And if you want to start defining that bottom ball a little bit more, you'll notice that it starts to look a little bit like flat there. So you kind of define and round from that point where you attach. Okay, next we're going to add our top one. So don't worry too much about how it looks right now. It's really about just attaching your snowman together. You can really worry about making it look beautiful later on. Okay, so there's our 2 pieces. Let's add our top. Same thing. So we're going to pull a little bit apart here. We're going to stab it into here. See how I'm kind of holding them together, pinching them a bit so that it holds it close. You turn it a bit. So it kind of almost looks like 2 marshmallows on the top. So you could actually start more defining the shape of the head here. So I'm going to kind of roll it and define that, make it a little bit more narrow there by poking. And if I want it to kind of fatten up around here, I can either add more wool, I can felt on an angle, and it will start pushing the wool down. On that middle one. If you want it to be more rounded, you can do your sort of sculpting. This one's quite long, so we can poke it down from the top. And once we add the hat on, actually, it's not a bad idea to flatten the top a little bit by poking it flat because your hat's going to go on there anyway. So see how it's starting to get a little bit flat? So we can do the same thing for the bottom so that we can actually put our snowman on the ground and it won't fall over. So right now it's rounded, right? So we can actually flatten it a little bit. Well, see, it's tipping over this way. I think we need to. Okay, it needs more felting on this side. Well, it stands up. That's good news. Okay, so next we want to start on our hat. So our hat's going to start the exact same way that we started our 3 balls for the body. It's going to involve taking your black wool and you're going to roll it really tight. You're going to try to push the sides in a lot, a tight little roll, really tight little roll here. All the way till you get to the end. Take that needle and you gently poke, not too deep, along the sides, along the top, just a little bit. Make sure not to poke your fingers, turn it a little bit. Go along, long. Tangle those fibers Now it's not going to come undone. So same thing, we're going to flatten one end. It's going to be the top of your hat. So we're just poking down. If you do it like this, make sure you don't poke your fingers. I like to do it on its side so I don't poke myself. So that's pretty flat on top. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is, well, it doesn't matter which side, but one side you're going to add your brim. You can kind of turn it as you poke if you start to get more confident. That's what I like to do. Makes the process go a lot faster. So here you go. We're starting to get more the shape of a top hat. Stand it on its edge. We'll start kind of flattening it down. And if you want to compress it very quickly, if you want it to get shorter, for example, so this is kind of like a tube like this, and I want it to get a little shorter, so I felt a little bit deeper. Okay, so here's our top hat. And next we're going to take a little bit of wool. It's probably actually a little bit too much, and we're just gonna kind of fold it 3 times, so actually twice, 1, 2, and so this is gonna be a little bit flat, so we actually just wanna kind of poke down a few times. We don't wanna go too deep because it'll go into the block and it'll kind of get tangled and stuck into it, so we just wanna go gently, lift it up every so often, make sure you're not poking in. And so now you're gonna try to imagine this is like a circle, like the bottom of your hat, so gently just wanna hold your hand on top to make sure it doesn't move, but you don't wanna push down too much because it'll be in the way of your needle. So just gently turn, and you'll define the edge to be sort of more like a circular shape. So see how it's starting to go? Just gently, not even very much at all. See how it's starting to just poke itself in? Yeah, okay. This. I see it's starting to become more of a circular shape. I'm gonna turn upside down, do the same thing. There we go. There we go. See, it's starting to look, it's kind of thick, so we want to start kind of poking it down. So it's a little bit flatter. We also don't want to get it stuck on there, so just lift it up. Every so often, turn it over. Do your edges a little bit more if you want. It's starting to look really good. Yeah, look at that. You imagine that as a little hat, right? Okay, so same thing. Just gonna pull a little bit of black, just a tiny bit out. And then we're gonna put it on there. We're gonna poke in right at that point where they meet. Just felt it to the bottom piece that we just made there, the little circle. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna turn it. We're gonna go all around the edge of the hat where it meets. Look at that little hat. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry too much about that. Boop. Okay, so next you're gonna do your little carrot nose. So you probably don't need too much. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to roll something this tiny. So sometimes it's helpful to use something really small. Like sometimes I even use the end of my needle that's not the one with the barbs, and I gently try to wrap. Sometimes I can do it by putting it down, and sometimes I have to actually hold it and wrap it around on here to make it really, really tight, like that. And then I just slip it off. You can use a bamboo skewer as well, like a barbecue skewer, but you already have the needle, why not use it? So you just kind of be very, very careful of your fingers when you're doing something like this. You're just gonna go gently, gently, and then turn it and see how one end's a little bit, we were gonna make that one the end of the carrot, so we wanna go a little bit more, felt a little bit more on that edge. And we can poke it in a little bit to define the edge, make it a little bit more pointed, turn it, kind of roll it, poke so it becomes more pointed than the other end. If you want it to be a little bit shorter, you can kind of poke it in this way. I still have to felt a little bit along here because it's still a little fluffy. Now I'll go in this way, condense it a little bit shorter. I don't want to get rid of too much of the fluff because I'll be able to, I need to use it to attach. So you don't want to condense it totally flat on this end. Look at that, it's looking pretty carroty. There we go. Look at that little carroty carrot. Okay, so if there's little bits of wool on the end, that's okay. You can actually snip those off later, so don't worry too much about it. Okay, so if it's too long, you can just snip it off with the scissors if you want. Oops, snip it off, don't hit your camera. If it starts, you can kind of edge. That's a pretty long carroty nose. That's not bad. He's gonna be a tall, skinny snowman. Okay, so now we're gonna add a little hat. So we wanna kind of do the same thing. I mean, actually, no, we don't need to do that. We can just poke through the top into the head. So I'm just gonna move my block out of the way for a second so you can see this a little bit better. So you're just gonna poke through the hat into the head. So you're gonna kind of hold the hat down with your one finger. Go right along the shape of that circle part on the top of the hat, the cylinder. I might do it actually on here just to make it easier, but there we go. Cool, it's starting to look pretty good. So next, obviously we have to do our little eyes and the buttons down the front. So you don't really need that much to do the eyes, just like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, like probably less like this. And don't worry about rolling it into a ball, just kind of mash it up a little bit and put it in the area you want. And you can see that's pretty fluffy, and don't worry about it. Just kind of gently poke it in. If you have a finer needle, which I can send you a few of, that's pretty good for doing really small things like this. But as long as you don't go too deep and you just do it gently, it totally works to use. 36 gauge needle. There we go. And you can just kind of go along the edge. If there's any little bits, you can cut them off later. So you grab another little bit. So your other eye, just kind of gently, gently ball it together, poke it in the direction, move the fibers over to where you want them to be using your needle like this. So you're like, oh, I want this there. Okay, move it up, move it with your needle. Go along the edge, make sure your eyes look circular. You have a few little bits, don't worry, we'll just cut them off. If you really want to go into detail, you could take a few tiny, tiny bits of black and you could put them across your nose to make those lines in the carrot. But I won't do that right now. So if you want to do your mouth, same deal. So you're going to take just a tiny bit. You know, for each one. There we go. Another one. There's lots of extra little bits here, but that's okay. Another one right here. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to add buttons down the front. Same idea. So we're just going to take our wool, poke, poke, poke. They can be a little bit bigger. Decorate them if you want. Don't go too deep because if you have a pretty fluffy ball here, you will actually start to indent it. So just do it super gentle. If you have a very fluffy shaped snowman, I'm just going to condense them down a little bit. There we go. Cut those bits off later. So that was one of our little buttons. Maybe I'll only do 2 buttons. He just has like a kind of smaller chest here. So 2. Just define it with your needle. Okay, there you go. And then next, we can make a scarf. So our little snowman at the side there. So we're going to take a little bit of our blue, and this is actually kind of the right length, so it's kind of fluffy, and all we really need to do is just sort of poke it a bit back and forth so it starts to condense and to make like a line, but make sure you don't felt too long so it doesn't stick into the block once again. So just going to kind of go back and forth, See it's starting to take shape. You can fold your edge over a little bit so you can make like a straight edge end. I'm going to define the edge like this. Pick it up a little bit, turn it over, define the edge here, define the edge along here. There we go, edge. Go, go along. I'm going to fold over this edge a little bit, lift it up, fold over this edge. If we need to add more length on it, it's very easy to do, so don't worry too much about how long it is. So there we go. You can start defining an edge like this. If you want to add stripes or any patterns on it, you can just poke them right in there. So it doesn't have to be super dense, the scarf. Like it can be very fluffy. It's totally fine. If you wanted to knit a scarf, that would be super cool. You could also do that. I mean, how long you want to take to make this scarf is up to you. Like you could get away with just kind of very lightly felting it so it's kind of more loose like this, or you could just keep going. So I'll go a little bit more, and then I will show you how to add it on. The other thing is because all the fibers are going in the same direction, you can actually kind of stretch it, make it skinnier if you want. There we go. Okay, we're not going to go too crazy on this. So basically what we're going to do is just put this little scarf on this guy. So I might actually stretch it out a little bit. And then we're going to go around. And actually we can even tie it just like a real scarf if we want to. Like that. There you go. And then we can stab it into place if we want to, just so we can control where these little bits go a bit better. So if I want it to go kind of on the side, there we go. Next, I mean, however you want to do your arms is too. Some people use pipe cleaners. We can create them sort of doing the same method we use for the nose, which is to roll very skinny little bits. You can use your black, you can use your brown. I'll probably go grab the brown. Forgot to get the brown. Okay, so here's some brown. You don't really need this much. This is far too much, but you really just need the tiniest bit. So, you know, you can just do the same thing where you use your needle if you want, roll it up. You could actually glue real sticks on there, which actually might be really fun. But if you wanted to, you could do little arms like this, roll them up around your needle. Watch those fingers. Y'all, you could just kind of make long arms like this, but actually I think it would be more fun if we used real sticks. So I'm going to pause the video and then I'm going to come back and show you what that would look like. Okay, so I went outside and I found the most perfect sticks for the arms, just on a hedge. So we're going to have our glue gun, of course, and I feel like I want to make a little hole. I'm just going to felt a little hole here. So there's a place for that stick to go, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue in there, just fill it up, and then I'm going to stick the stick in there. I'm going to kind of pinch it, push it in as hard as I can. It's okay if it kind of compresses down. Those little arms, cute. Okay, same on the other side. So we're gonna felt a little hole. We're gonna fill it up with glue. Oops. And we're gonna put our stick in there. We're gonna hold it in. There we go. So this is our little guy. He's cute. Okay, so you know, right now I can see that my chest is a little bit funny. So you can actually add more wool if you want to. So I'm gonna do that just to show you how you can fix things afterwards. So first I'm gonna turn off my glue gun because that is the safe thing to do. Whoop. And then I'm gonna take a bit of wool not very much. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because there's a spot in between the two buttons, I'm going to use that to go across. And I'm going to go and I'm going to wrap this bit of wool up and around the back like this. And this will help it hold in place. So I'm going to felt this, I'm going to direct where it goes so it doesn't go into my beautiful little buttons, but even if it does, it's totally fine. We can touch them up. So just kind of go around, poke that in, go around the little arm here. If you hit the hot glue, you'll feel it. So that's okay if you do. So there we go. We're gonna add a little bit more. Same thing, we're gonna go this way. I might go from the bottom here. We don't have to go through the middle. So I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go up and around. Actually, I'm gonna even swing around the back again. So I'm gonna see how I went up and around and over. And that's a good way to secure something in place. So it already has some glue. I'm just gonna go around, felt this around where it's connecting to the body. Oh, that's the glue there. I got a little bit on me. Okay, now my needle also. I felt that on. That bit of wool is kind of coming around the back. So we're gonna lift that little scarf. Gonna touch it in the back. Oh, there's my glue again. Okay, we're gonna go over here. So we can see that spot where I touch it, so that's okay. We can just take a little bit of wool, we can go over top of it. And what you can do is you can actually cut the wool if you want to, like you don't have to feel like you can't do that. So I'm just gonna go over it. Might even do this at the back. Just like put this across. Maybe I'll even put half going down below the button and half going up here. If you want to put the button on again or pull it off and put it back on, it doesn't really matter. It's not really a big deal. Just however you can add that extra wool. There's not really a right or wrong way to do it. There's just kind of more awkward ways and less awkward ways, I suppose. And add a little bit more. Maybe put a little bit of it up here. A little bit of it sort of like this way. There we go. I'm gonna turn it over, pull this wool around the back. They're all gonna be hidden under this scarf anyway. It's not to be perfect. There we go. Look at this little guy, isn't he cute? So if you want to fatten up the bottom of his belly there, you can totally add more wool to do that too. I would just add some more wool on here, wrap it around the back. Actually, I might just take this off. See how I can just pull it off so easily? And maybe I'll just add it back on. So you can always choose to change it afterwards. It's not really, there's no perfect way to do it. I don't ever plan out how I'm gonna make something before I do it. I just kind of go with it and then I'm like, oh, I need to change that. Wrap it around the back here. Around the back. So I'm gonna kind of felt upward so I can get a more fat belly here. See how I'm going up? There we go. On that angle helps it really fatten up. Go right along that line that defines the two. I'm going really hard, it's shaking the camera. So there we go. See how his middle belly's getting a little bit fatter? So I can add that little bit of black back on. Back where it was, there we go. Now he has a fatter belly. And I can do the same if I want to fatten up that bottom ball too. So just say I want it much fatter, I can just add a piece of wool, wrap it all the way around, just gently. I'm going to kind of go downward so I start to fatten it up. So attach it, kind of going down. I attach this piece like this. And if I really want it fluffy, I don't want to condense it too much, I won't go too deep when I'm attaching it here. So I'm going to turn it on the back. Watch not to, you can't put it on its side because it'll hit those little arms. mean, you can just add the arms at the end if you're planning it a little bit better than I am. So this bit, come over this way, very gently attach it. Oh, got a little bit of that blue from the scarf mixed in there. Oh, this looks so great. Okay, it's coming along. So if I want to fatten up that bottom, I can just kind of go on an angle. There we go. There we go. So he's coming along. Look at that little guy. So yeah, that's just a very simple way to make a little felted snowman. Now, the last little thing I normally do is I take some scissors and I cut off all the little stringy bits, just so it looks a little bit tidier, but I kind of also really like the aesthetic of it being a little bit hairy. After all, it is wool. Just depends on what it is. A snowman's not really supposed to be hairy, so, but if it's like an animal or something, sometimes I leave a bit more furriness. I usually cut it off, especially if there's two very different colors, so I like to make sure that I get all the extra little black bits off. You can use just regular scissors, but I really like to use like scissors that are used for like your eyebrows or something. You can really get in there. So I'm just going to cut off that little bit around here. You can really go crazy on taking all the little bits off, but I feel like what's the point of felting if it's not a little bit furry? Anyway, so there you go. There's your little snowman.